Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Student demonstrations were an annual occurrence in South Korea throughout the 1980s and 90s, mainly in the spring. Sometimes I was there when a protest turned violent. The students would press forward. Armed police in shields and riot helmets would push back. At times, police escalated the situation. At others, students did so, Molotov cocktails being the preferred method, though rocks were used as well. It seemed inevitable that a clash would ensue. Coughing, my mouth full of tear gas, water streaming from my eyes, I found it hard to commiserate with the protesting students. Even on days when I was blocks away, the spring air was tinged with smoke and gas. The beauty of the season was heavy with a sense of oppression. There were many reasons behind the violence. Reasons that sounded like excuses as often as not. Terms flew around me in a jumble of rhetoric. Justice, change, law and order, despotism, tyranny, communism, socialism, democracy, status quo, freedom, independence, and so forth. Something was going on, but it all seemed lost in the noise of the protests. I was quick to judge circumstances that I did not fully understand. I was not prepared to listen until after the violence had stopped, never asking myself if I would have listened before it began. This week in Columbia, South Carolina, protests have exploded into confrontation, sometimes set off by protesters, others instigated by police. However, in our small town, similar demonstrations have been tense but peaceful, supported by local law enforcement. This gives us the luxury of listening. We are all concerned about mob violence and looting. We fear for our loved ones far and near. How did it come to this, we ask ourselves. At the same time, we as a society have allowed something far more insidious and heinous to continue for too long. Former President George W. Bush took a stand in an open letter that surprised many Americans, saying he and Mrs. Bush are anguished by the brutal suffocation of George Floyd and disturbed by the injustice and fear that suffocate our country. He insisted that systemic racism in our society and the doctrine and habits of racial superiority must end, calling for empathy and shared commitment and bold action and a peace rooted in justice. Many supporters of social justice initiatives are not fond of George W. Bush. Politics are by nature adversarial. Both sides have ample claims against the other, reasons that are often used as excuses for malevolent behavior. Yet Bush's stance offers a slim thread of understanding. United with millions of other voices, millions of other threads, we may weave a dressing that will help, slowly, painfully, to heal our ancient and modern wounds. This conflict is not new. Followers of Jesus see a man who worked within the system and rebelled against it, often in the same week. He patiently discussed points of Scripture or overturned tables. He obeyed some laws and flouted others. He befriended representatives of an oppressive system such as tax collectors and soldiers, while at the same time openly embracing the most despised members of society: foreigners, prostitutes, lepers, and outcasts. Was Jesus an outlaw? Even that is unclear. He can be something of a mystery. His actions are often as puzzling as his words. Followers of Jesus do not have a monopoly on compassion. We have been guilty of cruelty in his name. Given time, we can pinpoint a biblical passage for nearly any behavior we want to excuse. The reasons behind our actions, however, can be frustratingly elusive. It is easy to love those who love me. It is easy to feel superior as I cast pocket change to those who grovel appropriately. It is easy to make an impassioned speech about civil liberties at a grade school during Black History Month. I walk away self-satisfied. I have done as Jesus did, I tell myself. Or have I? We have a mandate to love one another. Here I pause. Expressions of love can be deceptive. None of us receives pandering love with good grace. When I am the recipient of decent actions that are undermined by self-serving motives, do I feel genuinely appreciated and respected? When I love others, do I love this unique human being or my perception of this person as it serves my self-image? During the spring months in South Korea, I often went to bed with my eyes and throat still stinging from tear gas. The stench of doused fires lingered for days. Anti-Americanism was rampant at the time, but the same system that oppressed its own people also ensured genial treatment for U.S. expatriates. I was insulated from the effects of dictatorship. Young and self-absorbed, I saw the violence around me, but did not consider its cause. Years later, as a history writer, the full picture slowly grew clearer. I read first-hand accounts of systemic cruelty, unlawful arrest, torture, and murder in state-sponsored actions. South Korean scholars examined the complex web of deceit that likened religious devotion to support of the current regime, law enforcement, and the military. Students that had learned equality and independence in grade school were, in college, faced with a nation that subjugated these values. I came to realize that the cries from oppression had been all around me. I need only have listened. My years in Asia are behind me. Today, the spring air of America is filled with tear gas and smoke. I am listening now.
We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know we